This is Becoming Inclusive from the Kaleidoscope Group, where we're thinking differently about diversity, equity, and inclusion for more empowered people at work. We're committed to real change, and that begins with real conversations. Welcome in.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Becoming Inclusive. Today I am joined by my co-host Reggie Ponder. How are you?
Hey guys, hey, I'm doing good. Kat, how are you?
I am good. Happy to be here. And we are also joined by one of my favorite people, Lindsay Ciardelli, our business development consultant at the Kaleidoscope Group. Hey, Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here.
Yes, we're so happy to have you, especially me. And so Reggie can honestly say that I don't know if I've gotten this excited before. I'm very excited.
The feeling is mutual, Kat. Trust me.
She is definitely excited. She was so excited that you decided to come on and join us. I'm thinking that I might just leave you two and just let you guys have like a girl-mance or whatever that is. So.
Hey, it's already started, so we're all good. But, today I really wanted to have you on, Lindsay, to just talk about, I feel like we're in this space now where some companies are trying to lean into, what does a hybrid look like for in terms of, people coming into work versus, working from home. And what does that look like? Do we do 50% of the time? Do we let them pick? Do we make it to where people can if they want to, but they don't have to? I know some companies are actually like incentivizing with saying, we'll give you an extra bonus if you come into the office during the week, but you don't have to. And like, for me personally, like I am 100% prefer to work from home. I'm totally good on going into the office. So I kind of lean to that side of being very pro work from home, but I've also been working from home for a long time before the pandemic. But I also can appreciate that there are some things that you do lose from not being able to be in an environment with everybody. So I kind of just want to start off and pick your brain, Lindsay, and Reggie, feel free to hop in just on what are your all thoughts around this and what are some ways that leadership can lean into figuring out a way to find that balance and keep it as inclusive as possible.
Thank you, Kat. Yes. So this is one of my favorite topics to talk about because it's so real. And in some shape or form, everybody is going through it, whether you like it or not, right? So navigating these transitions in a skillful way is something that we all have to learn how to do. One of the things that you had mentioned is there are pros and cons to working from home. I completely am with you. I love the work from home environment. I think it's great, but there's some things, as you mentioned, that we're kind of missing out on. One of those, which I feel is priority, is decrease thought leadership due to less team environment dynamic, right? So you're not going to the office every day. You're not able to have that real person feeling experience. So I do think that there are some things that leadership can do to help to mitigate that. Some of the things that I've thought about are, scheduling one-on-one meetings with colleagues to grab coffee and get to learn one another on a personal basis, and you actually take the initiative to do that. Maybe designing and schedule group think sessions to really ensure that you are getting that thought leadership, maybe even cross-departmentally. So what are some things that, sales is doing? What are some things that marketing is doing to really ensure that you're bolstering the team dynamic as well as that thought partnership? Maybe organizing monthly activities outside of the workplace might be something that's going to enhance relationships. And then, managers, because
I think I'm going to stop you right there. I think something important you just said is enhancing relationships, right? That's kind of the essence of what you're talking about as well in terms of team building and being able to utilize each other in a workplace environment is enhancing those. And it's really hard to do that, just over Zoom.
It's really interesting though, Kat, because you're the one who you really do thrive working from home, and I know it. There's some benefits, which Lindsay is talking about, some benefits to the relationships at home as well, because what happens now is that people get to see everyone generally in their real environment. Mm-hmm. So you also get to, it almost level sets those leaders, because you get to see the leader in their home environment. You get to see the leader has issues and problems, and they actually humanizes those people, because you only, a lot of times in the workplace, you look at folks just as that work person, and you're like, well, that's the boss. But then all of a sudden you see that the boss has a baby, or that the boss has to, cut their child's hair. The boss has some things that they need to go off and do as well. So there are some benefits in terms of relationship building from there. What I'll say is that for me, there's a big disconnect for me for getting to know people. So Lindsay, I miss you. And I'm not just saying that because we're on the show. I actually miss seeing you in person, talking to you in person. And what happens, that what we do in person is sometimes we'll talk about stuff that will be business related, but be ideal generating. So we'll you and I, well, what about this? And talk about those types of things. And I miss that kind of interaction.
Yeah.
And I think that when you have to schedule a meeting for that, you miss this kind of spontaneity. Like, what are you working on? I would come by your desk and I was like, what are you working on now? And you're like, oh, I'm doing this thing for Doug. I didn't know you were doing this thing for Doug. I miss that one-on-one kind of spontaneous discussion and interaction. I'm not saying I need to have it every day, but I do miss it. And I think that something about culture that missing that or getting that actually helps culture in a way that's exponential.
Right. I think too, it's just sort of the energy exchange, right? And some people come out of their shell more when you're in person versus, when you're over Zoom or on a phone call. I have found too, especially on, deeper topics or things that may not be as comfortable to talk about, it's a little bit easier doing that in person when you can kind of read, how someone's taking something or reacting to something. And I mean, obviously that it's true when it comes to personal stuff, but even workplace stuff. I mean, even if there's conflict resolution, I think is much better in person, right? Than trying to read somebody over the phone or over Zoom. And I think it also alleviates, because now you both have me thinking, like, what does conflict resolution look like from a distance? What are you going to do? And I haven't had experience that, but I can imagine that is a sector of like, what do you do? What does leadership do when you're really trying to get something figured out, but you're over Zoom and people are probably maybe having things on in the background, ready to get off the call and go do whatever it is that they want to do, because it's like you're not in person. So you all just made me think about that. How do you even deal with stuff like that?
Yeah. That makes me think about something. I was partnering with one of our consultants the other day, and one would actually argue that the Zoom setting allows you, as Reggie kind of mentioned, to show up more authentically, right? You've got your background, it's there whether you like it or not, right? And people can show up and share their truth without the pressure of maybe that energy. So that could technically be something that someone could argue that it kind of helps to enhance showing up authentically. One of the things that's underneath what you're saying, Kat, is it's really hard for managers to hold people accountable in a Zoom or a virtual setting, right? And there's some things that they can do to really ensure that even if you are working in a virtual environment, you're able to gain control. You're able to see, what's happening in the workplace from a performance perspective, right? So some of the things they could do is develop and implement a means for transparency across the organization. Celebrate the wins and strengths, I think, is something that we really need to do in this virtual environment, because you don't always know what people are doing. Right?
So true. Yeah.
So to reinforce, you're doing a great job over here, or providing more feedback in a virtual environment, I think, is really, really imperative.
I want to say something to that, Lindsay. It's really interesting when you talk about celebrating those wins and knowing what people are doing. I find, and I've been working from home for some time now, but I find that I feel like I'm working in a silo. And so what happens is that I have to do a lot of work to figure out what people are doing. And because it's having to schedule some time, either call somebody or do a Zoom meeting, those things interrupt the regularly scheduled work of that person. So I become what they call a time stealer. It's like, hey, Lindsay, what are you doing? It's like, Reggie, I really don't have time to do. I thank you for calling. I appreciate it, but I'm in the middle of something, as opposed to that more kind of in the hall, water cooler, spontaneous, all of that type of stuff. So I do feel that I'm working in somewhat of a vacuum.
Yeah, I feel. And again, it's hard for me because I love working from home, but I do feel that as well. Sometimes it is kind of like you can be siloed and not know what's going on in other departments. But I'm going to push back that I think in some ways that's a con, right? Because then you're disconnected and that's not good. But in some ways, I think there are people that kind of work better a little bit in that way because they can focus on what they're doing and not, because there are some cons to being in a workplace that have nothing to do with being productive. They're actually very unproductive. I know some people that argue that when they're in a work environment, they're less productive because they're distracted by everybody around them. They're more focused on wanting to leave because now they're thinking about all the things they could try to make happen during their workday if they were at home. So as much as the whole silo thing can be problematic, I just feel like there's somewhere to meet in the middle, right? Versus have, everybody always being in there, because that doesn't work for everybody. Being in an office and having those kind of one-off moments, sometimes that makes people less productive.
Yeah. And so whenever I go into the KG office, it's, once or twice a week, and it's just like a party in there. Like I'm having more fun, which is great. But am I doing more work? Probably not. Right.
Yeah. So, right. That's a question. Right. And that's the question you have to see and ask as like a leader, right? Like when you come out of your office, when you look around, does it look like people are being productive? Or does it look like Joe and Sally are trying to, play tic-tac-toe in the corner? And I'm not saying that's everywhere that's bad. Everybody needs a break, and everybody needs.
Yeah. But here's the thing, Kat, is that because now, when I was going to the office, and I'm using Lindsay because Lindsay is here, I would talk to Lindsay. We do not talk at all. So the only times in which we will get together are on things like this or something where our paths may cross. And I want to say in the last year, maybe that's been 3 times. Mm-hmm. That does not bode well for culture. That doesn't bode well for bonding. I don't care what the research says or what other people say about that. It just doesn't, because now we like each other. We know a little bit about each other, but it's just a major disconnect. And I think companies are feeling this too, because 50%, a CNBC study showed that 50% of companies plan to require their workers to come back full time. So I am not saying that is the solution, but I am saying that people are recognizing that there is this people piece that's missing, and with things going meta and
virtual,
but
is it necessarily the people piece, or is it that some of these companies own offices that it's not in their best interest to keep empty because then you're just paying for something? I'm just wondering, is the motivation always about the people, or is the motivation about the capital? And that's something I've kind of been asking myself and some of my friends who companies have decided, in November, everybody's coming back, or in November, you have to do 50-50, or you can stay home Thursday, Friday. And that's what I wonder, because as a business owner, if I was paying for an office and I wasn't renting and I couldn't get out of it, I mean, yes, the people would motivate me, like, let's get people back. But I would also be motivated by, like, I don't want this office I'm paying for to just have nobody in it.
Lindsay, I stated my case, so I'm gonna let Lindsay jump in there.
Yeah, there's pros and cons. I know that at the KG office, we need someone at least once a week to collect the mail, so like we got to be in there to like do these little things and office management. But to a certain extent, I agree with both of you. I think I have to kind of play devil's advocate here, right?
You gotta only agree with me.
I have to, Kat. I have to, because I agree with you, Kat. I think that I also really enjoy, like, there is a cultural component when you're virtual, still.
Yeah.
But to Reggie's point, when there's that back forth energy, when you can feel it, when you can spontaneously say something and somebody comes back with a response, you're not getting that flexibility day to day from a cultural perspective. So it's really hard. And I do think that there's things that leadership can do, but it really depends on the dynamic of the organization, right? Are you big? Are you small? Are you local? Are you global, right? Global organizations today are already switching over to a virtual world, right? Because they've got,
offices all over,
stakeholders all over the planet, right? So, it kind of depends on the dynamic too, but I agree with both of you. It's hard to say.
Yeah, and I can't. Well, and I appreciate being able to see my teammates at some point. Like, at KG, we try to all get together at least twice a year, and I always leave those times feeling refreshed and rejuvenated, and like, wow, I learned so much that I didn't know before. But that fills my cup. You know what I mean? So it goes back to, how much do certain people need? And then if we force certain people to do certain things, we're like, how will that impact their work? Some people really need it. Like I know people that are like, I do need to be in there. Like, I just can't, my home being also my office, especially if you're living in a small apartment or something, that can get kind of dicey depending on your job and your workload. Not getting that escape, not being able to separate your home life from your work life. I completely understand that. But it is so nuanced to what you've been saying, Lindsay, like by company, what's the dynamic? How does this work for everybody? And then the bottom line, which is also, we can't make everybody happy.
Right. And so with that.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Lindsay. Go ahead, Lindsay.
Oh, I was going to say, one of the things, sorry, I might be losing connection here, team, but I'm going to keep going here. I'm going to keep rolling. One of the things that, kind of stood out to me, Kat, was the fact that everybody's cup is different, right?
Yeah.
So maybe from a leadership perspective, you need to understand what is going to fill the cups of your employees, right? So maybe that's your starting point and helping to enhance company culture is, okay, well, here's my organization. Here's how big they are. Here's how many departments we have. Here's who's in these departments, right? What do they need to feel comfortable in this workplace, in this new world that we're living, right? I think that's going to have to be a question that most leadership teams are going to have to ask themselves. Reg, sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, no. That's why this is, you said it's your favorite topic, and it's a really, really important one. And I think what I take from this is that what we really have to figure out is that we're talking about diversity. And when we talk about diversity, everyone's cup is different. And what they have in their cup is different. So in terms of looking at that, how do we make the best for most people? And then for those outliers, there might have to be some special situations done for them. And that I think that's fine, because sometimes you have to do that. You might have to do that as well. It's a tough situation. I'm looking at Apple, for instance. Apple is requiring people to come to work 3 days a week. So this is something that you just talked about, Kat. If that means you do get the flexibility of being at home at some point, but you also get that benefit of being around people and exchanging ideas in real time as well. So that's what they're requiring. I think I forget one of the companies, but it might be Virgin. I think they're requiring like 5 days a week that everybody comes in, and that's how it goes. And again, I mentioned the CNBC study that said, or survey that said that about 50% of companies say they're going to have everybody come back. That might not be right for every company, but for a manufacturing company, it would make sense. I actually need you in here because I'm passing this widget on to the next person. We need all those people to make that. So it is a company by company situation.
You know, you just made me think too, though, and I think about our working relationship, Reggie, is like, so I get very inspired by talking to other people and being around other people. You and I have the benefit of being, you know, in the same department, so we can talk for a while and kind of be able to bounce ideas off each other. We do that all the time for content, for different stuff, you know. And I do lose that ability to do that as much with other people in other departments because we are kind of doing different things, making different wheels turn. So I think also trying to find a way to bridge that is also helpful. That's not like, you know, me calling Lindsay in the middle of the day, hey, can we talk about like some content for an hour, you know, or for you, especially being client facing, you know, you don't have, I mean, that's working time for like the marketing department, but for you, you're on calls back to back, right? So that looks different, but I can admit that I do miss out on sort of some idea inspiration when I'm not able to connect with people outside of my team, as well as people on your team sometimes may think similarly to you because they're in a different part of the business or whatever have you, that there is also that potential missed opportunity. But Lindsay, you brought up a good point around like we can schedule ways, right, to cross paths. Whether that's monthly, whether that's once every 2 weeks, whatever have you. I think it's about being intentional about doing that and not just hoping that it'll work itself out. And I think that's where some companies might be right now, where it's like, let's just see what happens. Everyone's going to work from home. Like, let's just focus on bringing the money in, which obviously is important to put food on all of our tables. But, you know, we can't put that on the back burner of like, okay, if we are going to do this hybrid or if we're going to let people stay at home, what are we actively going to do? And you brought up some really good points, Lindsay, on how we can do that.
Right. And I think that the truth of the matter is it's going to take more time, energy, and effort to create relationships in the world that we're living in, right? So scheduling those one-on-one calls, monthly activities, managers taking initiative, you have to take the step now to create those connections with your colleagues because nobody else is going to do that, right? Whereas before you were in a natural environment where it happened very organically. So that's something that everyone's going to have to learn how to do. The other thing that you had mentioned, Kat, that really stuck out to me as well is the fact that there is a work-home balance that I don't think anyone's really mastered yet, right? You work where you sleep where you work. What are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like it's hard? Do you think that it's beneficial to have a office set up in the living room? What is your tactic getting around that?
So before Kat tells her, because I've heard this from her like 15 different times. I've been working on and off from home.
Yeah, Reg, what do you do over
there? For a long time. And what I'll tell you is that I believe that the company gets way more work because I don't set any boundaries. So if I wake up at 4:30 and I'm just looking and I was like, oh, let me go down to the office, and I so happen to have the space enough to have a work office. Let me go down to the office and do some work. I was working Saturday. I was working Sunday. Because I'm sitting in my office. I'm like, oh, there's an email. Let me check it. So I think there are dangers without trying to set those kind of boundaries, saying, look, you know what? I'm not going to work after a certain period, unless there's an emergency or something of that nature. I do think that I work way more at home than I would if I went into the office, because when I leave the office, then that says to me it's time for me to do something else. And if that means that I'm going to do some things with my family, or if that means I'm going to go out and have some fun, that now I've set that delineation between work and home. So for me, I do it, and I've been doing it for a while now, is that I do think I work much more than I would if I didn't have a home office.
And I see where Reggie says he works more, I more see it as it gives you opportunity to work a little bit smarter and like spread your day out if you can, to where it's like, okay, because I work from home, I can go to a doctor's appointment and not stress about getting to a doctor's appointment, getting back unless I have a meeting, but I can get back and now I can work, even if it's 6, right, or 7 p.m., I'm able to like still play Tetris with my day so that I'm getting a full work day in, but maybe it's not exactly from 9 to 5, right? Every single day. But it's pretty close. And the times I need to do something, you know, like I said, a doctor's appointment for me or for my son, I can move things around where it's not so stressful for me, to where it's like, it's not overwhelming, right? Because you have that ability. But to kind of answer your question more directly, like, I love, Lindsay, working from home so much that even though my work place is also my home, I can just like detach that. Like for me, I don't know if it's just because I am such a like work from home like advocator, like that's what it's, I can detach that, and I've become really intentional about the hours that I'm not working. What am I doing? Am I going, you know, like after hours, am I going to work out? What am I doing on my weekends? You know, right, you know, I'll take a walk outside during the day. I'll try to walk around and get some sun, and like I just make it so where, and I didn't always have like an office space, right? So really sometimes it was my kitchen table, or sometimes it was sitting on the chair in the living room, like where it was very integrated. And now I do have a space, but I just try to be really intentional about what do I do at the time that I'm not working in my home, so that I don't feel like, and the flexibility that working from home brings me,
I think
outweighs.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
Yeah. Can you all hear me? Can you all hear and see me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, sorry, cut out for a second, but I think I got the gist. Kat, thank you so much. So however, some may argue that, you know, having unlimited work time could impact your mental health negatively, right? So I'll give you an example. I'm in sales all day long. And whether I like it or not, someone's reaching out to me for a proposal, for a conversation, you name it, really, from a sales perspective. So I could keep working, like I'm not even kidding, for like 48 hours straight and still have more work to do. So I found myself in this place of always being readily available on my phone, and people could just get me and get my time. Whereas for somebody that might be in marketing or something that's more project oriented, you're not required to be so accessible, right? So I found myself always working, always doing something. And then a friend of mine was like, Lindsay, what are you doing? Like, we're on vacation right now. Like, put your phone down.
I told you when you were going to Europe, I was like, do not bring your work computer. What are you doing?
Exactly. And what did I do? Brought my work computer.
I know.
Because, you know, that's the name of the game, because I'm serious about my job. I take it very personally and I love it, right? But what I found myself doing is there's a new focus feature on iPhone where you can turn on focus and then it turns off all of your notifications past like 5 p.m. So I attached my email to that so they don't get any notifications after a certain point of time of the day, which has been really, really helpful. But I could see how somebody working 24 hours a day, you know, at some point it's you got to put boundaries in place to ensure that you're not overworking yourself.
But I think I'm going to go really quick though. I think that's what I have found in my career. You said something, you're like, I love my job, right? And so I really want to make sure I'm available. I love it. I want to work hard. I think that's where sometimes, depending on your workplace environment, it can be kind of toxic in society, really, like this thought on your job, because like, I love my job so much, but I also know that I have to create boundaries, because there has been times where like, I'm doing something way into the night. So when I say that I spread things out, I don't mean like literally like till 10 p.m., but I just mean like, I think that's what makes it hard for people too, to create those boundaries, because in society, it's like, you got to work all the time. And it's like, then your mental health kind of suffers. But it's like, if you can create healthy boundaries where it's like, I love my job and I want to work hard, but I also love myself and I need to be able to show up best. I can't do that working 48 straight hours, right?
All right. Well, talking about 48 straight hours, we've been on for a minute here because this is Lindsay's favorite topic. This is an important topic. I thought that being an older person, that maybe I just kind of like the old way, but I saw that AARP did a survey and they showed that most older adults really want to continue working from home. And I think from talking to young folks like yourself, you guys, you folks want to stay at home as well. I think it's going to really be very, very interesting as how companies respond to an overwhelming majority of people saying, I would like to be at home. I would like that flexibility. I would like what that does. So I think what we learned here, and we can come back and talk again, is we learned a couple of things, is that there's so many different ways to approach this issue. There's so many different people who and how they look at this issue. So that companies have a piece to do as well as individuals have a piece to do. And with that, we want to thank Lindsay for coming on. She just dropped off, but we'll thank her for coming on. And that is Catherine Potts, my co-host. I'm Reggie Ponder. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Becoming Inclusive. We'll see you folks next time.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for joining us, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one today. Becoming Inclusive is presented by the Kaleidoscope Group, your full-service diversity, equity, and inclusion partner serving clients worldwide. Learn more and continue the conversation at kgdiversity.com.